Captain Sarah Martinez stepped out of the dusty military transport vehicle, her boots hitting the concrete with a sharp click that echoed through the underground facility. The fluorescent lights above cast harsh shadows across her face as she adjusted her uniform and checked her watch. She was 15 minutes early for the most important briefing of her career, but punctuality had always been her trademark. The facility buzzed with activity as officers and analysts moved between secured rooms, their conversations hushed and urgent. Sarah had been stationed at various military bases around the world, but this place felt different. The air was thick with tension and the weight of classified operations that could change the course of history. As she walked through the corridors, Sarah noticed the curious glances from other personnel. Word traveled fast in military circles, and her reputation had preceded her arrival. She was known for her exceptional skills in aerial combat and reconnaissance missions, having completed over 200 successful operations in hostile territories. Her call sign had become legendary among pilots and ground forces alike, whispered with respect and admiration. The briefing room doors opened with a mechanical hiss, and Sarah found herself face to face with a room full of high-ranking officials. The atmosphere was electric with anticipation as she surveyed the faces around the polished conference table. Generals, colonels, intelligence officers, and military advisors sat in perfect formation, their expressions serious and focused. At the head of the table sat General Robert Hayes, a decorated war veteran with over 30 years of service. His steel-gray eyes met Sarah's as she entered, and she could sense the weight of whatever mission was about to be discussed. The general's reputation was as formidable as her own. Known for making impossible decisions in critical moments and leading successful operations that others deemed too risky, Sarah took her assigned seat, maintaining perfect military posture as the room settled into silence. The walls were lined with maps, satellite images, and tactical displays showing various global hotspots. Red markers indicated areas of conflict, while blue zones marked friendly territories. The complexity of the information suggested this briefing involved a mission of international significance. General Hayes cleared his throat and began addressing the room. He spoke about emerging threats, intelligence reports, and the need for immediate action. Sarah listened intently, her mind processing every detail as the general outlined a situation that required their most experienced and capable operatives. The mission parameters were unlike anything Sarah had encountered before. The target location was deep in enemy territory, surrounded by hostile forces and advanced defense systems. Traditional military approaches had failed, and conventional tactics were proving ineffective against this particular threat. The stakes were higher than any previous operation she had participated in. As the briefing continued, Sarah began to understand why she had been specifically requested for this assignment. Her unique combination of piloting skills, tactical awareness, and ability to operate independently in dangerous situations made her the ideal candidate. The mission would require someone who could think quickly under pressure and adapt to rapidly changing circumstances. The intelligence reports painted a picture of a critical facility that posed an immediate threat to national security. Time was running short, and failure was not an option. The general emphasized that this operation could prevent a catastrophic event that would affect millions of innocent people worldwide. Other officers in the room asked technical questions about equipment, support systems, and extraction protocols. Sarah remained quiet, absorbing the information and mentally preparing for what lay ahead. She had learned early in her career that the best operators listened more than they spoke during briefings. The room's tension increased as General Hayes revealed additional details about the mission's complexity. Multiple agencies were involved, coordination would be challenging, and the margin for error was practically non-existent. Previous attempts had resulted in casualties and mission failures, adding pressure to succeed where others had fallen short. Sarah studied the satellite imagery displayed on the large screens around the room. The target area was heavily fortified, with multiple layers of security and patrol routes that would make infiltration extremely difficult. However, her experience had taught her that every defense system had weaknesses that could be exploited with the right approach and timing. The general's voice grew more serious as he discussed the potential consequences of mission failure. International relations hung in the balance, and the success or failure of this operation could determine the future of global security partnerships. The responsibility was enormous, and everyone in the room understood the gravity of the situation. As the briefing neared its conclusion, Sarah felt the familiar surge of adrenaline that preceded dangerous missions. This feeling had driven her throughout her military career, pushing her to excel in situations where others might hesitate or retreat. She had built her reputation on embracing challenges that others considered impossible. The other officers began discussing logistics, communication protocols, and backup plans. Sarah's mind was already working through potential scenarios and contingencies, visualizing the mission from multiple angles and identifying possible complications. Her ability to think several steps ahead had saved her life countless times in the field. General Hayes distributed classified mission folders to each attendee, emphasizing the sensitive nature of the information contained within. Sarah accepted her folder with steady hands, knowing that once she opened it, there would be no turning back. The point of no return was approaching rapidly. The briefing room gradually emptied as officers departed to prepare for their respective roles in the operation. Sarah remained seated, studying the faces of those who would be supporting her mission from various command centers around the world. Trust and coordination would be essential for success. As the last few officials filed out, Sarah found herself alone with General Hayes. The silence stretched between them, filled with unspoken understanding about the challenges ahead. Both had seen enough military operations to recognize when something truly significant was about to unfold. The general's next words would change everything, setting in motion events that would test Sarah's skills, courage, and determination like never before. She straightened in her chair, ready to accept whatever responsibility was about to be placed on her shoulders, knowing that her response would define not only her own future but potentially the safety of countless others. General Hayes leaned back in his chair and studied Sarah's face carefully, the weight of countless missions reflected in his weathered features, as he prepared to reveal information that would change the trajectory of her military career forever. The silence in the room was heavy with anticipation as he opened a classified file marked with the highest security clearances. Sarah had always prided herself on maintaining composure under pressure, but something about the general's demeanor suggested this conversation would test her limits. Years of training had prepared her for dangerous situations, but nothing could have prepared her for what she was about to learn about her own past and the true nature of her military service. The general began speaking in measured tones, revealing details about Sarah's previous missions that she had never fully understood. Operations she believed were standard military assignments had actually been part of a larger, more complex program designed to identify and develop elite operatives with exceptional capabilities. Her success rate and survival instincts had marked her as someone special within the military hierarchy. As the truth unfolded, Sarah learned that her call sign carried significance beyond what she had ever imagined. The designation had been carefully chosen to reflect her unique position within a select group of operatives who handled the most sensitive and dangerous missions in military history. Her reputation had been built not just through skill and determination, but through participation in operations that officially never existed. The general explained how Sarah's psychological profile and combat performance had been monitored and analyzed for years. Military psychologists had identified her as possessing a rare combination of tactical intelligence, emotional stability, and adaptive thinking that made her invaluable for special operations. Her ability to remain calm under extreme pressure while making split-second decisions had caught the attention of the highest levels of command. Sarah felt a mixture of pride and unease as she processed this information. The missions she remembered as routine assignments had actually been carefully orchestrated tests designed to evaluate her capabilities under increasingly difficult circumstances. Every success had been noted and analyzed, building a comprehensive profile of her strengths and potential applications. The conversation took an unexpected turn when General Hayes revealed that Sarah's current assignment was not actually a new mission, but rather the culmination of years of preparation and evaluation. She had been unknowingly groomed for this specific operation, with her previous experiences serving as training for the challenges she would soon face. Details emerged about a secret program that identified promising military personnel early in their careers and guided their development through carefully selected assignments. Sarah realized that many of the mentors and commanding officers who had shaped her career were actually part of this program, subtly influencing her training and experience to prepare her for this moment. The general's revelations continued as he explained how Sarah's personal history had been reviewed and verified to ensure she was suitable for operations requiring absolute loyalty and discretion. Background checks had gone beyond standard military protocols, examining family connections, personal relationships, and psychological factors that could potentially compromise mission security. Sarah began to understand why certain aspects of her military service had seemed unusual or unexplained. Transfers that had appeared random were actually strategic placements designed to expose her to different combat environments and operational challenges. Training exercises that had seemed overly complex were actually simulations based on real-world scenarios she might eventually encounter. The weight of this knowledge settled over Sarah as she realized the extent to which her career had been orchestrated by forces beyond her understanding. However, rather than feeling manipulated or deceived, she found herself impressed by the thoroughness and foresight of the program that had shaped her development as an elite operative. General Hayes emphasized that Sarah's participation in the program had been based on her natural abilities and demonstrated potential rather than any form of coercion or manipulation. The program simply provided opportunities for exceptional individuals to reach their full potential in service of their country's security interests. The conversation shifted to the specific details of Sarah's current mission parameters. The general revealed that the operation would require her to work independently for extended periods, with minimal communication and support. Her ability to adapt to changing circumstances and make critical decisions without oversight would be essential for mission success. Advanced intelligence indicated that the target facility contained information critical to preventing a potential catastrophe that could affect global security. The nature of the threat required an operative capable of infiltrating heavily defended positions and extracting sensitive materials without triggering international incidents or escalating existing conflicts. Sarah learned that her mission would take her into territory where traditional military support would be unavailable. She would need to rely entirely on her training, experience, and instincts to navigate complex political and military situations while accomplishing objectives that could not be achieved through conventional military action. The general provided Sarah with detailed briefings about the cultural, political, and military factors she would encounter during her mission. Understanding local customs, languages, and power structures would be crucial for maintaining her cover and avoiding detection while working toward her objectives. Specialized equipment and resources had been prepared specifically for Sarah's mission, including advanced communication systems, surveillance technology, and tactical gear designed for extended independent operations. The investment in her mission reflected the critical importance of her success to national security interests. As their conversation continued, Sarah began to appreciate the complexity of the operation she was about to undertake. Multiple governments, intelligence agencies, and military organizations were coordinating their efforts to support her mission, while maintaining plausible deniability and avoiding international complications. The general explained how Sarah's success or failure could influence diplomatic relationships, military partnerships, and global security arrangements for years to come. The responsibility was enormous, but her track record suggested she was capable of handling the pressure and delivering results under the most challenging circumstances. Time was becoming a critical factor as intelligence reports indicated that the window for successful mission completion was rapidly closing. Enemy forces were increasing their security measures, and political situations were evolving in ways that could make future operations impossible or significantly more dangerous. Sarah accepted the mission parameters with the same determination that had characterized her entire military career. The challenges ahead were unlike anything she had previously encountered, but her confidence in her abilities and training gave her the strength to move forward without hesitation. The final preparations would require absolute focus and attention to detail, as Sarah transformed from a skilled military officer into an elite operative ready to undertake one of the most important missions in recent military history. The preparation phase consumed the next 72 hours of Sarah's life, as she immersed herself in mission planning with an intensity that surprised even her seasoned military mind. The classified facility became her temporary home as she worked alongside intelligence analysts, technical specialists, and strategic planners to refine every aspect of her upcoming operation. Sarah found herself studying detailed maps and satellite imagery until the terrain became as familiar as her childhood neighborhood. Every building, road, and geographical feature within a 50-mile radius of her target was memorized and analyzed for potential advantages or complications. The intelligence team provided hourly updates on enemy patrol patterns, security rotations, and environmental conditions that could affect her mission timeline. The technical briefings revealed sophisticated equipment that pushed the boundaries of military technology. Sarah trained with communication devices disguised as everyday objects, surveillance tools smaller than coins, and weapon systems that appeared to be standard civilian items. Each piece of equipment required hours of practice to master, and failure to properly operate any component could compromise the entire mission. Language preparation occupied significant portions of her training schedule, as Sarah worked with native speakers to perfect her accent and cultural mannerisms. The cover identity she would assume required flawless performance in multiple languages, along with detailed knowledge of local customs, political situations, and social hierarchies that could expose her if misunderstood or misapplied. Physical conditioning reached new levels of intensity as Sarah prepared her body for the extreme demands of extended independent operation. Endurance training, combat simulations, and survival exercises tested her limits while building the stamina and reflexes necessary for success in hostile territory. Medical training taught her to treat injuries and illnesses that could occur when professional medical assistance was unavailable. The psychological preparation proved equally challenging as military psychologists worked with Sarah to develop mental strategies for coping with isolation, stress, and moral ambiguity. The mission would require decisions that could conflict with traditional military ethics, and her ability to maintain focus and determination despite these conflicts would be crucial for mission completion. Intelligence briefings revealed the complexity of the political situation surrounding her target. Multiple factions with competing interests controlled different aspects of the region, and Sarah would need to navigate these relationships carefully to avoid triggering conflicts that could jeopardize her mission or escalate into international incidents. Advanced tactical training introduced Sarah to infiltration techniques that went far beyond standard military procedures. She practiced moving through secured facilities, bypassing electronic security systems, and extracting information from computer networks while leaving no trace of her presence. These skills would be essential for accessing her target without alerting enemy forces. The cover story development required Sarah to become fluent in the background and motivations of her assumed identity. She memorized personal histories, professional credentials, and relationship details that would allow her to maintain her cover under intense scrutiny. Any inconsistency in her story could result in exposure and mission failure. Communication protocols establish secure channels for maintaining contact with command while minimizing the risk of interception or detection. Sarah learned to operate sophisticated encryption systems and emergency communication procedures that would allow her to request assistance or report critical information despite enemy surveillance efforts. Contingency planning consumed entire days as Sarah and her support team worked through dozens of potential scenarios that could complicate or derail her mission. Alternative extraction routes, backup communication methods, and emergency procedures were developed for every conceivable situation that could arise during her operation. The weapons training pushed Sarah's marksmanship and combat skills to new levels of precision and effectiveness. She trained with exotic weapon systems and learned to improvise deadly implements from common household objects. Her ability to defend herself without access to traditional military weapons could mean the difference between mission success and catastrophic failure. Surveillance detection techniques taught Sarah to identify when she was being watched or followed by enemy agents. She practiced counter-surveillance methods that would allow her to lose hostile observation while maintaining her cover identity and continuing toward her objectives. The cultural immersion training required Sarah to adopt the mannerisms, attitudes, and behavioral patterns of her cover identity completely. Military instructors who had lived under cover for years taught her to suppress her natural military bearing and replace it with civilian behaviors that would not attract unwanted attention. Electronic warfare training introduced Sarah to the latest developments in signal intelligence and cyber warfare. She learned to detect and avoid electronic surveillance while using her own technological advantages to gather intelligence and maintain communication with her support network. Medical emergency procedures taught Sarah to handle life-threatening situations that could occur during her mission. She practiced treating gunshot wounds, poison exposure, and other trauma that could result from discovery or conflict during her operation. Final mission rehearsals took place in a facility designed to replicate her target environment as closely as possible. Sarah practiced every aspect of her mission multiple times, identifying potential problems and refining her techniques until her movements became automatic and efficient. The stress testing phase subjected Sarah to psychological and physical pressure, designed to simulate the worst-case scenarios she might encounter during her mission. Her ability to maintain focus and execute her mission objectives, despite extreme stress and fatigue, was evaluated and strengthened through repeated exposure to challenging situations. Equipment testing verified that all of Sarah's specialized gear functioned properly and that she could operate it effectively under combat conditions. Backup systems and redundant capabilities ensured that equipment failure would not automatically result in mission failure. The final briefing session brought together all the elements of Sarah's preparation into a comprehensive mission plan. Every detail had been considered and prepared for, giving her the best possible chance for success in an operation that would test every skill and capability she had developed throughout her military career. As the preparation phase concluded, Sarah felt a profound sense of readiness and determination. The intensive training had transformed her from an exceptional military officer into a highly specialized operative capable of undertaking missions that others would consider impossible. The confidence gained through thorough preparation would sustain her through the challenges ahead. The deployment began before dawn, on a Tuesday morning, as Sarah made her way through a series of carefully orchestrated transportation stages designed to obscure her true destination and mission objectives. Commercial flights, private vehicles, and military transports moved her across continents while maintaining the appearance of routine travel that would not attract intelligence attention from hostile agencies. Her cover identity as a freelance journalist investigating economic development projects provided perfect justification for traveling to regions where her actual target was located. The credentials and background documentation supporting this identity had been crafted with meticulous attention to detail, creating a verifiable history that could withstand scrutiny from suspicious authorities. The first phase of her mission required Sarah to establish herself in the capital city and begin building the network of contacts that would eventually provide access to her target facility. She rented a modest apartment in a middle-class neighborhood and began the careful process of integrating herself into local society without attracting unwanted attention. Language skills that had been honed during her preparation phase proved invaluable as Sarah navigated the complex social and political landscape of her operational environment. Conversations with merchants, taxi drivers, and other civilians provided valuable intelligence about local conditions while helping to establish her cover identity as a legitimate journalist. The intelligence-gathering phase required Sarah to balance her need for information with the necessity of maintaining her cover story. She conducted interviews with local officials, business leaders, and community representatives while carefully probing for information relevant to her actual mission objectives. Security awareness became a constant concern as Sarah detected signs of surveillance from multiple sources during her first week of operation. Government security services, criminal organizations, and potentially hostile intelligence agencies all maintained observation networks that could threaten her mission if her true identity was discovered. The cultivation of local assets proved more challenging than anticipated, as Sarah worked to identify individuals who could provide access to her target facility without compromising her cover or creating security risks. Trust had to be built carefully over time, and any misstep could expose her mission to hostile forces. Financial arrangements required careful management, as Sarah used various methods to fund her operation without creating traceable connections to her actual sponsors. Currency exchanges, cash transactions, and electronic transfers had to be coordinated to support her activities while maintaining operational security. Communication with her support network followed strict protocols designed to prevent interception, while providing regular updates on her progress and any emerging complications. Brief coded messages transmitted through seemingly innocent channels kept her handlers informed without alerting hostile surveillance systems. The reconnaissance phase began as Sarah started making exploratory visits to areas surrounding her target facility. These trips were disguised as journalistic research into infrastructure development projects that provided legitimate reasons for her interest in industrial facilities and transportation networks. Technical challenges emerged as Sarah discovered that security measures at her target facility were more sophisticated than intelligence reports had indicated. Advanced surveillance systems, increased patrol frequencies, and additional personnel suggested that hostile forces were aware of potential threats and had upgraded their defensive capabilities. Social engineering techniques became essential as Sarah worked to gather information from facility personnel who frequented establishments in nearby towns. Casual conversations in restaurants and bars provided insights into security procedures, shift schedules, and personnel vulnerabilities that could be exploited during her infiltration attempt. The psychological pressure of maintaining her cover identity while planning a dangerous operation began to take its toll as Sarah balanced the demands of her journalist persona with the need to prepare for action that could result in combat or capture. Mental discipline developed during her training helped her manage the stress of leading a double life. Weather conditions added complexity to her mission planning as seasonal changes affected visibility, patrol patterns, and environmental factors that could influence the success of her infiltration attempt. Sarah had to continuously adjust her timeline and procedures to account for changing conditions that could not be predicted or controlled. Local political developments created unexpected complications as government officials increased security measures in response to unrelated threats. Sarah found herself navigating a more dangerous environment than originally anticipated, requiring constant adaptation of her plans and procedures. The final preparation phase required Sarah to acquire specialized equipment and supplies that had not been provided during her initial deployment. Local procurement of materials needed for her mission required careful planning to avoid creating suspicious purchase patterns that could alert security forces. Backup plans became increasingly important as Sarah recognized that multiple contingencies could derail her mission at any point during the infiltration phase. Alternative escape routes, emergency communication procedures, and contingency objectives were refined based on her growing understanding of local conditions. The target facility's security assessment revealed both vulnerabilities and strengths that would influence Sarah's approach to infiltration. Physical barriers, electronic systems, and human security elements each required different techniques and timing to overcome without triggering alarm systems or alerting personnel. Timing considerations became critical as Sarah coordinated her infiltration attempt with external factors beyond her control. Political events, security rotations, and environmental conditions had to align perfectly to provide the brief window of opportunity necessary for mission success. The final intelligence updates from her support network provided crucial information about recent changes in facility security and personnel that could affect her operation. Last-minute adjustments to her plan incorporated this new intelligence while maintaining the core objectives of her mission. Personal preparation reached its final phase as Sarah mentally and physically prepared herself for the most dangerous aspect of her mission. Years of training and weeks of careful planning would soon be tested in a high-stakes operation that would determine not only her own survival but the success of a mission critical to national security. The moment of action was approaching rapidly as Sarah completed her final preparations and began moving toward her target facility. Everything she had learned, practiced, and prepared for would soon be put to the ultimate test in an environment where failure could have catastrophic consequences. The infiltration began at exactly 0347 hours, as Sarah approached the perimeter of her target facility through a carefully planned route that avoided electronic surveillance zones and guard patrol patterns. Months of preparation condensed into moments of precise action as she moved through the darkness with the fluid grace of someone whose every movement had been rehearsed to perfection. The outer security fence presented the first real test of her technical training, as Sarah deployed specialized tools to create an undetectable breach in the electronic monitoring system. Advanced signal processors neutralized motion sensors while sophisticated cutting equipment sliced through reinforced barriers without triggering pressure-sensitive alarms that would alert facility security. Moving through the industrial complex required constant awareness of multiple threat vectors, as Sarah navigated between storage buildings, processing facilities, and administrative structures that housed the information she had been sent to retrieve. Every shadow could conceal a guard. Every sound could indicate approaching patrol units, and every step forward increased her exposure to detection. The primary target building loomed ahead as Sarah reached the final approach phase of her infiltration. Intelligence reports had identified this structure as containing the computer systems and document archives that held the critical information necessary for preventing the catastrophic scenario that had prompted her mission. Electronic countermeasures proved more challenging than anticipated, as Sarah encountered security systems that had been upgraded since her last intelligence update. Advanced encryption protocols and biometric authentication requirements forced her to adapt her techniques while maintaining the silent, invisible presence that was essential for mission success. The interior layout matched architectural plans that had been studied during her preparation, but the actual environment presented unexpected complications that required real-time problem-solving. Additional security cameras, altered room configurations, and increased personnel presence forced Sarah to modify her planned route while maintaining progress toward her objectives. Computer network infiltration demanded the full extent of Sarah's technical training as she accessed systems protected by multiple layers of cybersecurity. Advanced hacking tools disguised as innocuous electronic devices allowed her to bypass firewalls and encryption while extracting the specific data files identified as critical to her mission. Time pressure intensified as Sarah realized that security patrol schedules were more frequent than intelligence reports had indicated. Windows of opportunity between guard rounds were narrower than planned, requiring accelerated execution of technical procedures while maintaining the precision necessary to avoid triggering automated security systems. Document retrieval proved more complex than anticipated as the critical files were distributed across multiple secure storage systems rather than consolidated in a single location. Sarah had to access several different areas within the facility while maintaining her invisible presence and avoiding detection by increasingly sophisticated surveillance networks. The extraction of physical documents required careful handling to avoid triggering inventory control systems that monitored the movement of classified materials. Advanced scanning equipment allowed Sarah to capture document images while leaving original files in place, preventing immediate detection of her infiltration. Communication with her support network remained limited to brief coded transmissions that provided status updates without revealing detailed information about her progress or current location. Emergency protocols remained available, but could only be used if her mission was completely compromised and extraction became necessary. Technical complications arose when Sarah discovered that some of the critical data was stored on isolated systems that could not be accessed remotely. Physical interaction with secure terminals required additional time and increased her exposure to detection, while she manually extracted information using specialized data recovery tools. The discovery of unexpected intelligence during her infiltration created new challenges as Sarah found evidence of additional threats that had not been identified during mission planning. This information was potentially more valuable than her original objectives, but extracting it would require extending her presence in the facility and increasing her risk of discovery. Guard patrol encounters forced Sarah to employ advanced concealment techniques as security personnel passed within meters of her position during critical phases of her mission. Combat training prepared her to neutralize threats if necessary, but mission success depended on remaining completely undetected throughout her infiltration. Environmental factors complicated her extraction procedures as weather conditions outside the facility deteriorated, affecting visibility and electronic equipment performance. Backup communication systems became necessary when primary channels were disrupted by atmospheric interference that could not be predicted or controlled. The final data extraction phase required Sarah to access the most heavily protected systems within the facility, while security forces conducted an unscheduled patrol sweep that increased detection risks. Advanced timing and coordination allowed her to complete her objectives while remaining invisible to enhanced surveillance procedures. Emergency situations developed when Sarah triggered a minor security alert that required immediate response to prevent escalation into facility-wide alarm conditions. Years of training in crisis management allowed her to neutralize the threat while maintaining her mission timeline and avoiding detection by responding security personnel. Evidence disposal became critical as Sarah prepared to exit the facility without leaving traces of her presence that could alert hostile forces to the compromise of their security. Advanced techniques for eliminating forensic evidence ensured that her infiltration would remain undetected long enough for the extracted intelligence to be analyzed and acted upon. The extraction route required modification when security forces altered their patrol patterns during Sarah's infiltration, forcing her to adapt her exit strategy while maintaining the stealth and precision that had characterized her entire operation. Alternative routes planned during preparation proved invaluable for successful mission completion. Final security measures required Sarah to ensure that all electronic systems she had accessed returned to normal operating parameters without indicating any unauthorized activity. Advanced cybersecurity tools automatically covered her tracks while preserving the integrity of original data to prevent suspicion. The successful completion of her infiltration marked only the beginning of the next phase, as Sarah began the complex process of extracting herself from hostile territory while carrying intelligence that could change the course of international security. The information she had gathered would soon prove its value in ways that exceeded even her mission planner's expectations. Communication protocols activated as Sarah reached her first extraction checkpoint and transmitted coded confirmation of mission success. The intelligence she carried represented years of preparation condensed into a single night of perfect execution that would soon demonstrate the value of elite military training and operational excellence. The debriefing room was filled with tension as Sarah sat across from General Hayes and a panel of intelligence officials who had been waiting for her return for the past 18 hours. The successful extraction from her target facility had been confirmed through satellite surveillance, but the true measure of mission success would be determined by the intelligence she had gathered during her infiltration. Sarah methodically presented the data she had extracted from the secured facility, revealing information that exceeded even the most optimistic expectations of her mission planners. The documents and electronic files contained evidence of threats that were far more sophisticated and immediate than original intelligence assessments had indicated. The reaction in the briefing room was immediate and intense as senior officials realized the implications of what Sarah had discovered. Phone calls were made to the highest levels of government while secure communication channels connected the briefing room with intelligence agencies and military commands around the world. General Hayes studied the documented evidence with growing concern, as he recognized patterns that indicated a coordinated threat involving multiple hostile organizations. The timeline for preventing catastrophic events had been shortened dramatically by Sarah's discoveries, requiring immediate action from military and intelligence forces across several continents. The technical analysis of Sarah's intelligence revealed sophisticated planning and coordination between groups that had previously been considered separate threats. Advanced weapons systems, financial networks, and operational timelines painted a picture of imminent danger that required unprecedented international cooperation to address effectively. Sarah found herself at the center of emergency planning sessions as her first-hand knowledge of the target facility and intelligence gathering methods became essential for developing response strategies. Her insights into enemy capabilities and vulnerabilities would guide tactical decisions that could determine the success of counter-operations. The scope of the threat became clear as intelligence analysts connected Sarah's discoveries to unusual activities that had been monitored in other regions around the world. What had appeared to be isolated incidents were actually coordinated preparations for a series of attacks designed to destabilize global security arrangements. Communication networks activated as Sarah's intelligence was shared with allied governments and international security organizations. The cooperation that had been developed over decades of shared military operations now proved essential for addressing threats that no single nation could counter independently. Operational planning accelerated as military commanders used Sarah's intelligence to identify targets and develop strategies for neutralizing the immediate threats she had uncovered. Time constraints required simultaneous operations across multiple time zones with coordination that tested the limits of international military cooperation. The validation of Sarah's intelligence came through independent confirmation from other sources, as her discoveries were corroborated by separate intelligence gathering efforts. The accuracy and completeness of her mission results earned recognition from officials who had initially been skeptical of the operation's value. Additional missions were launched based on the targets and operational details that Sarah had discovered during her infiltration. Her intelligence provided the foundation for a series of coordinated strikes designed to disrupt enemy operations before they could achieve their catastrophic objectives. The interrogation of captured enemy personnel confirmed the accuracy of Sarah's intelligence, while revealing additional details about the scope and timing of planned attacks. Her mission had provided the critical breakthrough that allowed security forces to prevent disasters that could have claimed thousands of lives. International recognition came as foreign governments acknowledged the value of Sarah's intelligence and the professional excellence she had demonstrated during her mission. Diplomatic communications praised the operation that had provided early warning of threats that could have destabilized entire regions. The personal cost of Sarah's mission became apparent as she processed the psychological impact of operating alone in hostile territory while carrying the responsibility for preventing catastrophic events. Military psychologists worked with her to address the stress and isolation that had accompanied her successful operation. Award ceremonies and commendations followed, as Sarah's superiors recognized the exceptional skill and dedication she had demonstrated throughout her mission. However, The classified nature of her operation meant that public recognition was impossible, limiting acknowledgement to those with security clearances sufficient for mission details. The strategic implications of Sarah's mission extended far beyond the immediate threats she had helped neutralize. The intelligence-gathering techniques and operational procedures she had employed set new standards for future special operations, while demonstrating the value of elite military training and preparation. Follow-up operations continued for months, as Sarah's intelligence led to additional discoveries and the identification of previously unknown threat networks. Her single mission had triggered a cascade of successful counterintelligence operations that systematically dismantled enemy capabilities. The long-term impact of Sarah's mission became clear as international security arrangements were strengthened based on the vulnerabilities and coordination methods she had uncovered. New protocols for information sharing and cooperative responses were developed to address similar threats in the future. Career advancement followed as Sarah was selected for increasingly responsible positions within the special operations community. Her proven ability to execute complex missions under extreme pressure made her invaluable for addressing emerging threats that required exceptional skill and judgment. Training programs were modified based on lessons learned from Sarah's mission, as military educators incorporated her experiences into curricula designed to prepare future operatives for similar challenges. Her techniques and procedures became standard elements of advanced special operations training. The final chapter of Sarah's story was still being written as she continued serving in roles that required the same exceptional skills and dedication that had made her mission successful. The general who had ordered her to state her call sign would remember forever the moment when she had said, "Specter 6, and changed the course of history through her professional excellence and unwavering commitment to duty. The silence that had fallen over the briefing room when Sarah revealed her call sign had been broken by applause that recognized not just her individual achievements, but the culmination of years of preparation, training, and dedication that had made possible one of the most successful intelligence operations in military history.